because people are turning to analog right now because, there's almost this pushback with AI and people are afraid. And so you hear about, going back to the 80s and all the analog. So reading communities and reading events are kind of having a moment. We're in the age of the newsletter right now, the art of the newsletter. And you want it to feel like it's coming from someone and people are not being sold to all the time. Nobody wants to be sold to all the time. We're all kind of over that. So having a nice, consistent sign off and something that's personal really makes it feel like a letter to a friend. And when I started my Substack newsletter, I really spent some time thinking about, okay, what's the tone? I saw this trend about a year ago where authors were just the first couple newsletters. I was like, oh, this is like badly written by ChatGPT. It's not going to work. So then I'd have a sensitive but honest conversation about how they did that and, where they're going. And everybody was using the free version badly. So I'm like, if we're going to do it, let's get the paid version, use it well, make it a thought partner, and train it on your body of work.
Hello, I am today joined by Jen Baxter. I always wanted to bring her to you. And just a few minutes back, she told me that she, for instance, knows Laura Belgray, an amazing genius copywriter, and that she's a shrimper. So we're going to also learn more about copywriting today. But also, Jen participated in and joined the US book show. And this is what we wanted to talk about. But it's also, of course, going to be about book publishing in general, the future of book publishing, and of course, copywriting and how to become a better copywriter. Because with every newsletter, we're also somehow writing copy. So Jen, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, and as we were talking about like the hook for today's session, we said then somehow, there is the US book show coming and you participated in this. So, for all of us who couldn't participate, for instance, I'm in Germany, I would have had to fly to New York City or so. Tell us a bit more about like the vibe and what was going on, some like insights, from the floors.
So the US Book Show is a publisher's weekly event, and it's really an industry. It's like inside the publishing industry. And this was my first time. So, and I'll just touch on it briefly. Like I worked for a hybrid book publisher called Scribe Media here in Austin, Texas. That's where I'm from. That's where I'm living now, not where I'm from. And at that time, they were kind of a disruptor in the space. And so going to this conference is very much like the mix of hybrid and traditional publishers talking about what's happening in the industry today, not necessarily like author centric. So I met some authors there, but I met a lot of publishing industry folks. And book people are great people. So I just want to say that too. Like that was the vibe. People are passionate about books and about reading, and they like the people that they work with. So I feel like that was like a vibe takeaway. And then just to connect this to what we're talking about, there were a couple panels that I felt were really interesting and heartening. Oh, there. That's the Stable Book Group. He's really nice, Keith. So there was a panel about reading being social again, right? Building community in the platform age. There was Patrick Milligan from Substack, one of the program managers from TikTok, someone from Harper's, and someone from Kickstarter. It was a really interesting panel around how do we build an audience and find readers today? Like what's happening out there? Because the takeaway for me is that the power and influence is shifting quite a bit from, having sort of tastemakers in New York with the big five publishing companies deciding what books we read and deciding kind of what's getting out there and how, to now authors thinking more like entrepreneurs because they have all these tools that will help them have a direct relationship with their reader. So that can either be overwhelming to you or that can be exciting to you. But that is really the age that we're shifting towards, and the thing that's happening that people are talking about the most in terms of audience development.
Yeah, and I also heard that a huge topic was like the use of AI and data-driven versus data-informed, something like this. Could you share something about this? Like, did you join one of these panel discussions, or did you talk about AI with someone, or this data-driven and data-informed?
That's actually a great distinction that I learned about too. And what you're talking about in the context of that panel is about consumer behavior.
Mm.
So there's two, and actually I walked away from this, Christina, realizing, oh wow, there's really two big conversations happening. So there's the one where are we using AI to write and edit books, right? The creative process. That pretty much people stayed away from at this conference. It was like, let's not get into it because that's where things get heated, right? And there's all this gray area and talking about AI for the creative process. But actually, in the publishing industry itself, there are so many use cases for AI on the back end, right? And especially how the publishing industry works and search and discoverability that is really important to be able to use these new tools and integrate them. So that was this conversation. And then also around consumer behavior, this is the idea is that data driven is almost treating it's sort of that term that treats readers like consumers of your product,
Mm.
right? Without that human feel. But data informed is really looking at people's behaviors, what they buy, what they read, what they tell their friends about. And so the data informed is going to give you that feedback. And that's how people are looking at it to find out now, like, where are people and what are the conversations that are happening? And
So more
so
like conversation tracking then to have like a cloud and seeing, this and that is what people are talking about in this specific category and stuff. Yeah, this is also, I think it's interesting that you said like that many didn't want to join like these discussion where it was about like here AI usage and AI detection products and stuff. So
yeah, not in
yeah.
the creative process, but on
Yeah.
the back end in the publishing process because it will help things. Like it will update things. There was a really interesting panel about SEO and GEO, right? So,
Oh yeah.
yep. So Amazon, right? Like your Amazon book page and how things get found and searchability. So that there's been a huge shift, right, from Google to people using ChatGPT and Claude for search. There was a really technical discussion about, okay, well, now when somebody goes in and starts asking for book recommendations in an AI tool, right? Like, what are the words they're using and how are they thinking about it? And then how can you have all of your author marketing face online material at least not keyword driven anymore. So not like keyword stuffed, I think was the term he used, right? You don't want to stuff it with SEO keywords, but you want to use those phrases and those messages that AI will then pick up on, and you want to use them in every single place. So if it's author website, if it's in your Substack description, your Amazon page, you want to make sure that those phrases that really encapsulate who you are and what your message is and what your books are about shows up the same in each place because now AI will track that.
Yeah, I think this is super important. Like, or already like a few years back, I was talking with a Google expert about exactly this, and he also told me, Christina, what you need to know about this is that because the anecdote here was that I found out by googling my name, which you should definitely do at some point if you're writing online. I found out, wow, there was like some kind of business card on the internet suddenly appearing. Then when I was googling myself, and I was writing about this on Medium, and then someone from his team reached out to me and explained what it was, and it was called like a Google Knowledge Panel. And then I
Mm,
asked him for an interview because I had no clue about this, la la. And then he also said exactly this, and was 3 years ago. And he already said, you know what, there's coming like this AI age, and all what's going on there is already like all these AI bots going through the text and seeing, okay, are there any like semantic links? What does this exactly mean? Is Christina a writer? Is she a marketer? Is she, you know what I
yeah,
mean, like a
yeah,
mompreneur? What is she exactly? And then also, for instance, when it comes to Google, Google then decides, is Christina this specific persona or is she another one? And then it was about like, how can you become this writer? And so, for instance, if you're Googling my name, you're going to see Christina as a writer. You can, of course, also push this in the direction of becoming an entrepreneur, for instance, or so. But he always said the future belongs to the writers because in an AI driven internet, people are longing then for these human, somehow
mhm.
also like curators. I guess this is something like this, right? Yeah.
So that age is here. And so now the way that you message and present yourself online, at least for right now, needs to be consistent, especially for authors across all of their online places so that AI will pick it up and actually get the right message to readers and then serve them, what they want and who you are.
And did they say whether they want the same as it was like 3 years back and what I'm still doing? That you really have like the same bio everywhere, or you know what I mean? Like maybe on YouTube, because the idea I had was on Medium and YouTube and on Substack, I was losing the exact same bio because this brought me to this point where I had this Google Knowledge panel. Was this like the same, or did they add some more to it?
I don't remember him using the description bio.
Hmm.
The description I heard him say was message and having that same message. And I think that's the bio and description across all those places.
I see.
So that
Yeah,
there's
I
that
think similar to
consistency.
Substack with semantic search and stuff. You also
Yeah.
you don't have
Yeah.
to say who exactly you are, but
Yeah.
Substack somehow is going to connect you with people. I see.
The other thing that really excited me, actually, that was totally new for me, is that I think because people are turning to analog right now because we're so, there's almost this pushback with AI and people are afraid. And so you hear about, going back to the 80s and all the analog. So reading communities and reading events are kind of having a moment. And I met someone there who organizes reading events. His company is called Reading Rhymes, and he had just done like, I think either 1,500 people or 2,000 people in Bryant Park in New York, where all these people showed up with whatever book they wanted to read. They all sat on the grass in the park and they read and then
Oh,
they socialized afterwards. And he's done author launch events too. He did a massive author launch event where everybody got a book and then everybody read the author's book for an hour and then everybody sat around and talked about it. So, like, those communities are popping up. I've heard of them, but I had not yet met people and heard about it so much. And then as soon as I got back to Austin, immediately on Instagram, like an ad popped up for a place called the Analog Room that's opening this week. So I'm going. So they're doing a beta test of 2 events this week where you sign up, you show up with your book, bring a friend. I'm bringing a friend. They take your phone when you walk in and put it in a lockbox and you get the key. You read for an hour and then they have wine and cheese and everybody chats.
yeah, I love
Yeah.
this. Like somehow you could say like this is retro, but it's not retro.
Yeah.
I think it's a renaissance. It's
Yeah.
something that's coming back after so many years. And also, what I saw here on Publishers Weekly, that they found out that less young people really like read youth literacy. They say, I'm not reading for fun. I'm just reading whatever, like for school, or I'm reading for my studies
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah. So reading for pleasure is down 40% in the last 20 years. I just read a survey
Mm.
yesterday. I had a study yesterday. And I already was pretty aware and reading articles about literacy in the US because I think that ours is the lowest in the world. Right. So that always makes me sad, and then also the banning of books in schools. So there is a lot going on with literacy and making sure that people read for pleasure, and I also feel like, well, I know, especially after this conference, right, that is part of the challenge that book publicists and marketers have, is that there's a dwindling number of people who read for pleasure, and there's a lot of books out there. So then this is why that shift in power is so important, and that shift in influence moving towards authors having a direct relationship with their readers. Because the idea now is that you really want to cultivate a community of readers, kind of like romance writers do. Like that's the best example I have. Romance writers are amazing at building a brand. So you recognize their book from the cover, from the titles, right? And then their characters. And then also having these readers that are just totally dialed in, waiting for the next book. They're amazing. We could learn a lot from its writers, all the nonfiction folks. So that's really kind of what I'm talking about when I'm saying kind of the power and the influence is shifting, right? The opportunities and the platforms are there for people to cultivate that. And that, because I think too, reading for pleasure and literacy in this country is at such a low point, right? Getting involved as an author in communities, in reading events like this is probably a place you're going to find a lot of readers for your book.
Yeah, and also
Yeah.
these in real life events, they are coming somehow back. In the past it was always, oh, as an online writer, try to do everything online, nothing
Mhm.
in real life. And also when it came to courses, it was always like do the on demands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
create it and then just sell it. And now people are like, no, no, I won't buy your on demand course. I need some more, because everyone can do it.
Yeah.
You can go into chat, you can go into Claude, and of course,
Yeah.
sometimes it's hallucinating, especially if it comes, for instance, about Substack information. But of course, as we're like feeding it, it's becoming better and better. And for instance, if I'm whatever like writing about a specific tool, then the AI also knows about this tool and how to use it and stuff. So yeah, such an on-demand course is easily done and then sold for whatever, like $49 or so. So more and more leaning into this, like, hey, I'm having a cohort, I'm doing a live, we're now meeting live. And this is,
Yeah.
I think, on another level, right? And you can really build this deeper connection and really build this community. It's not just, this like shouting into the internet and you're sitting in your like whatever, like creativity room and writing it and doing the courses and stuff. Yeah. So in
Yeah.
real life events are really common. Yeah.
And I also feel that goes back to a really basic human need, which is a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
We all need a sense of belonging, and our sense of belonging has been kind of shattered in the last 5 years since COVID. So now it's time to like move into this space of like, okay, well, where do people belong? And how to and so if you can do it through books, like great, let's try. Like I'm like, all right, I'm here for it. Maybe it'll fail. Maybe we'll move on to something else, but let's do it. And a book is something that, I love this idea of reading with others and then talking about it. It's a little bit social, it's a little bit community. And then I also feel like, the course market, online courses are going through such a massive shift right now, too, that while that kind of levels out and we see what happens with that, I think you're right. People want things like this. And people, if they're going to be online, they want to meet other people. So, in fact, I'm just going to do a little shout out. So, Christy Keller is on here. Hi, Christy. So, a little shout out to her because she started doing coffee chats, free coffee chats on Zoom once a month for anyone, like for her subscribers, but not just paid subscribers. And it's really goes back to that. Like we did one a couple weeks ago, and it was great. Like 90 people signed up, and maybe 15 people showed up. But the truth is that like everybody is kind of craving for that connection and a place to like talk things through. And Substack is common ground, right? We all have a Substack. We all like to write. We all like to read. So getting together with other people and hearing what they're doing is kind of what you're craving, because otherwise you're in a silo wondering, well, am I doing it right? Why am I not, like, am I writing into the void? And when you can bring people together like that, I think people really need that right now.
Christy and I, we started both like on Medium, and then Christy also
Oh,
started
yeah.
writing on Substack later. She also was part of the online writing club at some point, and now she also has her own like Substack newsletter and also her own like personal newsletter. So it's definitely very important with the lives. Also, when I'm talking, for instance, about Tamara Monosov, she's all about gray divorce, and what she's doing is like bringing all these women together. It's really like a female thing, meaning like she's bringing all the women together. So she's saying, no, this is not for men. This is just for women,
Yeah.
and who will go, are going, or went through a great divorce. And she's then bringing like all the experts, you know what I mean, like the financial advisor and you know what I mean? Because time you're losing your house and the relationship
Yeah.
with your kids isn't as good as it used to be, then somehow you need maybe like a mediator to talk with your ex because
Yeah.
he's like, well, in love with a 20-year-old. You know what I mean? So yeah, and I think this is why I always say you're not creating like a newsletter when you're writing on Substack. It's more like that you're creating this community. But this is no matter whether you are writing on Substack or not. This is also when you're just writing online, no matter on which platform you're doing this, because
Mhm.
somehow you always gonna get the response. And these responses, this is something that I want to talk with you about. But there are two more things I wanted to share with you. Here on Publishers Weekly, I also found that they said hashtag, for instance, at the event, they also like included like letters saying like these are some tips and tools for reading with kids and stuff. So apparently they now want somehow us as parents to educate our kids on becoming these readers, future readers, because otherwise I don't know who should read in the future, you know? It's of course lovely to be on Substack and to be together with all the readers, but it's super important. And I think it's really important to somehow educate the next generation. Also, what I love was that they said that reading, as you shared, like reading is social again, polished content, all things corporate looking are out.
Yeah.
I think also I'm seeing exactly this. So many telling me, Christina, I hate all this stuff on LinkedIn. This is why LinkedIn is shifting. For instance, it's coming more about like these personal hooks. You know what I mean? It's not like this is my award. You know, it's more like, okay, I didn't thought I would get it, and this is how whatever like the last 5 years looked like, and then
Um,
you know what I mean. After 300 sleepless nights, I got this award. This is why I'm crying, not of joy, but because I'm thinking maybe I should quit my job. Something like this. It's more becoming more personal, which I love as
yeah.
well. And also, I think, and this is something for instance, I attended the Frankfurt Book Fair. Also in Frankfurt is like the leading book fair in the world. Last
Mhm.
year, this is
Yeah.
always like in autumn, and then we have it's called Leipzig Book Fair. I also attended this year. This is like more for the indie authors. And for instance, what I
Mhm.
love there, I don't know whether this was more than publisher focused. I think, as you said, like with the top five
Mm.
publishers coming together. Yeah, yeah. But for instance, with the indie publishers, what I loved the most was that they said, similar to you, we need to build more connection with our readers. This could be through a newsletter, through somehow a chat, direct messages and stuff. And this is something that I wanted to talk with you about because you definitely know already like about these new reply rules that Substack now shipped. This means that, for instance, if someone, we have multiple surface areas on Substack. So for instance, when Jen and I, when we connected, this was for instance via direct messages. So I had told Jen, hey, did you see I sent you an email 3 months back? Then Jen said, oh, Christina, sorry, I was so busy. You know, this was a direct message. So you can, for instance, direct message someone. This is amazing on Substack. Then we have the chat. So direct message is for one-on-one conversation. And then we have the chat, and the chat is like more for all the subscribers. So only the subscribers can join your chat. And then you can decide whether you want it just for the free subscribers, the paid subscribers, or the founding members. We have 3 tiers on Substack. And then we all notice, but at the end of our post, of our long form post at the bottom, we also have posts, and then we have notes where we can also leave replies, you know. And for all of this, we now have reply rules. And this means that, for instance, if Jen would like to add her 2 cents to a conversation that's going on in the Online Writing Club chat, she would see this, like Christina, what Christina is writing, what my house rules are. What are you thinking about this new feature?
I haven't really tested it before. I don't have much reason to set rules for replies.
Yeah.
I can see how some people do. And I think that creating safe spaces online is really important. And that is like a tool to do that. I'm not, I mean, in fact, I was just kind of going back and forth with another copywriter on one of his notes. Like I'm more I mean, I copywriting has almost trained me out of it, but not quite. Like I'm more of a people pleaser, right? So I'm always trying to make everybody comfortable and I'm always trying to make it a safe space. So I necessarily wouldn't necessarily need that kind of thing, but there are people, and I think it goes back to what you were saying, that like are more controversial and really want to have like the harder conversations. And so then that's a way that you can keep those harder conversations. And also, I think people are writing about sensitive topics too. So there are a lot of Substacks out there, memoir Substacks, and people writing about, things that are really helping people, but a select group of people. And you don't want, people judging and criticizing and ignorant in the comments.
And it should always be like a safe space. And the idea from Substack was also from Miles that he said, similar to if Jen would, if you would invite me to your house and you would say,
Yeah. Yeah.
Christina, it would be lovely if you would do this and that. I would say, yeah, of course, Jen. And then, we would have a great time together. And this is similar to the rules we have now without really, you know what I mean, in your face. This is what I love. If you're going on your subdomain.substack.com/ and then publish/settings, and
Uh-huh.
this would just mean you would go on your newsletter, click on dashboard on the right top, and then you would come to the settings, click on settings, and then you would come here. You can then search for your, what is it, like benefits. And in the
Mhm.
benefits, this is nothing new. These are the tiers where you would say, you know what, I'm beefing up my tiers. This is the reason why you should subscribe to free, paid, and
Yeah. Yeah.
founding. And then this is new. You have the subscriber perks. You also can, for instance, create these perks. This is one of the features that is new.
I
You
think
can
this
go.
is just last week. Like just last
Yeah,
week.
last week. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is in beta.
Yeah.
This is in beta.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the other feature everyone has access to is this one here. If you go on community, I'm always doing this via the search. You would search for a community. So in the past, what you could do all the time was you could say, hey, I want or I don't want to enable likes and restacks. I want that people can report, that I can report. I can also ban people. I can
Mhm.
also like moderate my whole space. And this is
Mhm.
something that Substack wants from you to do, of course.
Mhm.
And now what you also can do is enable automatic moderation. And then it says filter replies based on your moderation activity over time. So what you can do then is you can go on reply rules and you can then set the standards for your community behavior, which I think
Mhm.
is cool. And
Mhm.
I, for instance, I just went with because I saw this from the multiple examples on Substack, and there are lots of overlaps because we all want people to be kind and it has to be somehow
Exactly.
useful and it shouldn't be like this, you know what I mean? Like, great
Exactly.
post, amazing, I'm gonna bookmark this, you know what I mean? Like, somehow
Yeah.
also this AI slop because many can now, how should I say this, like automate this and you're getting like
Yes.
all those same stuff all the time. Also on notes, you might have seen this. There are people, I also, of course, asked someone for an interview and he said he's never doing any interviews. But I said, you're doing so amazing on notes. And how he's doing this, he told me in the direct messages one to one, he's somehow automated this whole process. And so this is why, for instance, I'm posting something and within the second, he is already replying to my note. And this is, of course, like this AI slop thing, you know, because there is no connection,
Oh.
you know.
He's automating the replies to your notes?
He's automating. Yeah, yeah. He's
Yeah,
picking a
yeah.
circle of people, let's say
Yeah.
50 or so, and this is how he's
Yeah.
growing. So, for instance, you would think, "Oh, wow, there's a true fan." But if you're like taking a deeper look and you're like, "Oh my God, well, what are these comments really?" And if you're then
Yeah.
replying, you're gonna see, you know, it's not really like this human interaction. And I yeah, talked with him about it, and he said, "You know, Christina, this is how I'm growing. Of course, you can do it that way, but this is not really about human connection." So again, it shouldn't be AI slop and stuff. So for instance, if I'm picking one of the guest posts, it was Jeremy Nay as an example, and we scroll then down to the comments, then now if, for instance, if I would like to reply here, I would now see Online Writing Club reply rules. And then I would see exactly this what I showed you, you know, these
Yeah.
reply
Yeah.
rules. I think this is cool. So, for instance, in the
Yeah.
past, if we're going to go back, for instance, Cat, you know, Cat would have written something that would be whatever, like not really, like, let's say off topic or so sometimes. You know, this, remember this time when people were going into the comments with this, you're going to get a laptop for free and stuff, or
Oh,
descriptive
right.
stuff. There
Yeah.
were
Perfect.
crazy times or impersonation attacks and stuff. And then, for instance, I could now also hide Cat, or I can tell Cat, hey, this is not okay, you know. And
Mhm.
then this, it is AI, you know, AI is learning what I want and what I don't want, where my boundaries are, what my house rules are. And then somehow AI is helping keep my
Mhm.
house clean. Let's go like this. What do you think about this tool?
Yeah, I
Uh,
don't think that right now I use them, however, I like being in communities that do use them, right?
yeah.
And so and also, I think that actually there's a lot of frustration around the tiers with Substack, right? Like it's
Yeah.
so basic and kind of clunky. And I set authors up, especially nonfiction authors up on Substack regularly and help them build their audience here. And so the founding member tier, they're always like, what is the founding thing? What do I do? So I feel like we had like this very bare bones structure for paid subscribers that was clunky. And I feel like now they're starting to give us some tools to like expand and refine those. So, especially for clients that I have who really do want the community aspect, especially if it's a nonfiction book, it's maybe their second or third book and they're a consultant, right? And it's part of their business ecosystem. Just like you were talking about, like they may have like a small course and then now they have another book and then they consult that they're like, okay, I want a place where I can bring all that together and talk to people, right? Then I think that actually these tools are something that we would talk through about how they could use that in their strategy and how to do that moving forward. It's really helpful. I feel like too that those tiers we just need more because it's been so
Mm.
basic and confusing that now the more tools that you give us to build out communities. I also think that there's a distinction between, at least in my world, for like a nonfiction author, do I want to build a community? Do I want to build a reader audience where I'm just writing while I work on my book? Or actually, am I investing in a little bit of a media company? And we all know Substack is really like has media companies popping up on the platform all the time. So I imagine that they're investing in tools that will help those media companies do the things they want to do and create more and stay.
Yeah, there are more and more brands joining and bigger publications also from Scandinavia. And so there are some already like on Substack who are saying,
Yeah.
we're bringing the whole newsletter to Substack, which I think is nice. And also when we're talking about community, what do you think about like these direct messages we have, the chat? I think like replies and leaving a comment, this is something we have of all on all the platforms. But I think with the direct messages, this is very special. Of course, again, here you can also like automate this whole process now, la la la. And we don't need to talk about this. However, at some point, this might be useful for you. But I'm really talking about, for instance, to just yeah, you could, for instance, welcome new subscribers. This could be free subscribers, paid subscribers. It depends on how big your newsletter and your email list is already. Or you can ask a question. You can give it behind the scenes. So, for instance, Jen, she could share some pictures from the book show as an example, or also doing a live and then putting it in the chat. So the chat is really, just this
Yeah.
exclusive space in your house, this living room where all the people interested in one specific passion topic are coming together. What do you think about this specifically, like chat and direct messages?
So I think I've seen people use direct messages really strategically, in ways like if we're talking about automation. So when I subscribe to newsletters, whether it's paid or unpaid, people have set it up so I get an automatic DM from them saying welcome and asking a question. Totally into that. I mean, I think because not everybody does use direct message, and not everybody is on the app, right? So if they're not, then that's actually a little more data. Like if we talk about consumer, right, data, like that's a little more, okay, that person doesn't do that. But if any time that you can get feedback and make that connection, especially in the first day, the first couple of hours that someone signs up for your newsletter, like that's the time when they're thinking about it, and that's the time to reach out to them as much as you can. It's kind of a basic 101 principle. Like the welcome email needs to be written and inviting and warm and with a question so that you're at least asking for a reply. I think automating a DM when someone subscribes so they get a message that way is just another channel to do it. And then using the chat, so I like using the chat. I use it with my subscribers and I participate in other people's chats. It gets a little overwhelming. So I have a couple chats that I'm a part of. And to be honest with you, after a month goes by when I'm really busy, kind of like the email that I missed from you, right? I'm like, oh my God, I got to get back in there. And so I just saw somebody in a chat that I'm actually really active in repost it somehow on notes, and I was like, "Oh, that's a smart idea," because it's, like, on my mind, and I see people in there that, like, I really wanna connect with, so I kind of wanna get in there and be part of the conversation, and I think that's how I explain it to the authors that I work with, is that these are tools, and so you have to pick and choose what's most important and what you can be consistent with, and also where your people are. So it goes back to, like, if you have a lot of subscribers that are not on the app and they mostly read you in their inbox, then those things aren't really going to matter, right? You're going to actually be frustrated trying to get them off the ground because you're not going to have enough people. If you have gotten your sort of base, your audience base to a place where it's half and half the people are on the app and they're active, that's going to be a better experience. So you have to look at where you are in your stage, right? You have to look at where the people are. And then you have to say, okay, well, what do I have the bandwidth for that I really enjoy? Because some people have incredible chats where now they don't even moderate them anymore.
Mm.
Right? Like people are just talking about books, talking about clothes, talking about travel recommendations, right? Like Forest Store, the things worth knowing. Like there's a whole world in hers that and she's hardly on there anymore. Right. So it really depends like who you are, what stage you're at, and then also where your people are. And that's how you kind of decide what tools to use and what tools not to use. I also want to add too, there's the templates, email templates at the bottom of emails now. So you can, and this is such a big thing. So if you have something that you want to keep top of mind, so if you have a chat that you want, if you do want people active in the chat, especially if you have a book, so any authors out there that do have a book, you got to use the templates now at the bottom of the email, put your book in there, put your chat in there, what's another great idea too? if you're doing an event, right? Or you're going to do a live, you could have a list of lives in there. And then you just click on it, add it to the end of the newsletter, and it's there every single time. It's like something people really need to take advantage of. It's great. And I think the more that Substack adds those tools and features for us, it's actually a matter of understanding I don't have to use everything. I just have to know where I am. And this is how I talk to my clients too. Like, let's look at the next 6 months, right? Like, don't worry about, all the other things people are doing. Look at 6 months, look at your life for this 6 months. How much bandwidth do you have for this? And then let's choose one or two things and let's do it consistently and then get some feedback and see how it goes. And then let it go or keep going if in 6 months it's working or not working, depending on how consistent you were, how much you enjoyed it, and how much of a response you got. Because it is the thing that I love about Substack is that it is all about conversations, right? It is all about talking about these topics that we don't really talk about in other places with people who think, write, and like to read. So you want to pick a few tools that connect you so that you can start those conversations, because that's just goes back to kind of what we were talking about in the publishing conference, right? At the book show. It
Yeah.
is now about you being able to be a tastemaker, you being able to sort of have this influence, but not even influence, just this audience of people who are interested in the topic that you're talking about and want to learn or want to hear about what you have to say, and that you can reach them thoughtfully.
Okay, for instance, she shared being patient for 6 months is tough. This is true. This is definitely true. However, you might know that most people like quit between week 14 and week 16. And we're talking about 1 year. This is 52 newsletters. In the beginning, when I started, I always said, write these 52 newsletters in a row and then see how your life changed. My life definitely changed. I wrote, I think, for 2 years or so for free the newsletter before
Yeah.
I turned on, or I don't know exactly, 1.5 years or so. I was pregnant and stuff. I couldn't be consistent. However, at some point
Yeah.
I said, then you know what, I'm gonna turn the paid button. And in this moment, I knew I had to like deliver. There had to be like a specific,
Yeah.
unique selling proposition back then. And I think this is very important. And what you are sharing is this aspect of, first you have like a topic you are passionate about. This is why you come to Substack. You're like, oh man, maybe I can monetize this. Of course, for most, it's really in the beginning, really, I want to build this audience. But no
Yeah.
matter what topic, there is no one inside the Online Club uh, who is not at some point telling me, Christina, I want to earn some bucks because you know what? I'm growing so fast. Yeah. And then it's always like, oh my God, what if I would have started earlier with this? And then it's more about like nurturing this community, nurturing this garden.
Yeah.
You were talking about like this garden idea. And I think somehow like Substack is somehow a garden, as you say, like with all the
Yeah.
flowers and stuff. And for the community aspect, I think for instance, I'm using a circle in addition. However, I will change this in the future. I won't use circle moving forward. I started this in 2024, I think, when I also turned on the paid button. And I said I wanted to give them some kind of paid member experience, which back then you couldn't experience on Substack. However, now
Yeah.
I'm more and more using the chat and it's working. However, I
Yeah.
always think it's best to have your own audience somewhere. So I
Yeah.
definitely will bring my audience somewhere else, but this will be something that I build that is not something that I have to pay $200 per month. Because Circle, for instance, is super expensive and all the other tools I'm using super expensive. And at some point, you're going to ask yourself the question, do I need all this? And so
Yeah.
I think you can build definitely community for free. So you can be on Substack for free, build the community for free. And also, if you're seeing someone inside the community, this person is already a subscriber. And in the direct messages, then you can, for instance, you see a Tim or so, Tim Harvey, and you're going to click on Tim and then you can send him a direct message because most of the people, they are sharing their real goals and their real secrets or their real passion with me in the direct messages.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
really in this public space that is a chat, but we have these possibilities. And I just want to tell you, like, it's really like the best time to be on Substack with all the free features that we have now. And you can also always decide whether you want to go with the chat and the direct messages or you're going to
Mhm.
say no. But I would, similar to the paid button, which I recommend everyone to turn on from day one, I now also recommend anyone to turn on the chat button, which many missed out on. we had a live a few weeks back, and I asked who would have had the chat button on. The paid button is something that many now do, but with the chat, they are like, no, like 80% or so wouldn't have a chat. And I said, you want to have an actual conversation with your peeps. So the idea would be to have also like this
Totally.
chat going. What I love about the chat is you have this real time conversation. What you shared, like when it comes to what do we have, like Met Gala, NFL, specific celebrity marriage, whatever,
Yeah.
like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? All this stuff you can then discuss in the chat in this inner circle, and you can invite everyone like to your living room, and you can talk about this, sitting at one
Yeah.
table. This is what I love. And then the direct message is more like you're taking this person saying, you know what, let's go into the garden. Then we're going to talk about this and that. And yeah, this is really cool. And with your community, Jen, how are you then like amplifying your posts and everything you're doing in your business via chat and direct messages? How are you using like this flywheel and this workflow?
Before I get to that, I want to just touch on something that you said, which is turning the paid feature on like from day one. So like that is actually the thing that I have all my clients do because when you start a Substack, like you can make it an event. Like it's sort of a thing. And people do want to support you. So you can turn the paid feature on and not have any of your content behind the paywall for the first 3 to 6 months so that people can share it and read it and comment. Cause that's the most important thing is you want to build that momentum and sort of see who's there. But turn the paid features on. And even if your founding membership is my undying love and gratitude for supporting this, right? You can let people support that and then share that in other places. And it'll give you that little boost of momentum without making you feel like you're on the hook for content every single week, right? Like you're just, okay, I'm taking myself seriously as a writer. I'm taking this seriously, right? And I'm just going to let people support me. And people always do. And it's always a pleasant surprise. It's always good. So, back to how I use it. So, I am not awesome in the DMs with my subscribers. So, I try actually to do more of the chat, more of the comments, and more of notes. Although the DMs I pretty much use for like Substack writers that I talk to all the time. Like, always check the DMs and stuff.
Christy. Yeah.
Um, yeah. Yeah. So, but the chat feature actually, I go through. And this is actually the way that I started newsletter writing too, Christine. I don't know if this will resonate with you, but I used to look at it in sprints when I first started because I was working full time for a book publishing company. So I was going to start this Substack, and I'm like, how do I do this, and how do I manage both? So I had some emails about writing groups and writing circles and writing practices, and I thought, okay, I'll repurpose some of those, and then I'll write like 6 or 7 new ones. So I would do sprints for like, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to write every day or every other day and have like 14 posts ready to go. Right. And then like schedule those out. And then I might stop for a couple weeks. Right. And I might just be in the comments and just promoting them or just sharing them in places. So I tend to do that with the chats too. I will go through, like, especially in the summer, things are slow sometimes. I'll go through sprints with the chat. And especially if I'm writing about things that are really sort of Substacky, right? Like all the things that we're talking about, the how-to things. How do you do this? How do you write your about page? I do a lot of that. How important is your welcome email? What do you put in there? What are your reader touch points so you have the same message in all the different places that people find you? So then I'll have chats about that. And then often like I'll say, okay, I'm talking about pages, like, and I'll sometimes look at people's, I'll sometimes give them feedback, but there'll be a conversation. And it's a lot of that is around writing Substack stuff and then also crowdsourcing what I'm going to write next. Like, is anybody interested in this? Does anybody care about that? And you have to, I mean, even me, I'll just say, like, there are definitely chats that I put out there that get like no one, crickets. Christy, because she's my friend. And then like a week later, somebody will chime in and I'll be like, wait, no, but that's over now. So I definitely put a time limit on it too. Like I'll have like, okay, I'm gonna be here doing this until this time. There's actually a moment. And then if people kind of wander in a week later, I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry. Like, but I'll get back to them. So I love using that feature in a way that like it's about a topic that I'm thinking about or it's about something that I'm working on that people really need help with.
Yeah, it's very important, and especially in the beginning when you're just getting started. Maybe we can continue this with Tamara Monosoff and Grady Divorce. Tamara was also, oh, Christina, I don't know. Why should I turn on the chat? No one will care about this. And I said, even if just one person's going to reply, or it's going to just be similar to you with Christy cheering you on, it's going to be fine. And she said, yeah, well. And then the thing was, especially if it's about a vulnerable topic, which often is the case when it comes to Substack, and when it's about like personal memoirs and stuff, then with Great Divorce, lots of people sent her or replied to her emails. Replied. So you can, whenever you get an email, you can also
Yeah,
hit
yeah,
reply.
yeah.
And so she got lots of messages telling her, oh, this is now my go-to newsletter and I needed this and stuff. And she was like, oh my God, Christina, like my inbox is exploding. So you never know which way they're gonna go. And
Well, I think it
especially,
depends where people are
yeah,
reading, right? Like,
yeah,
that's part of the consumer behavior thing, right? Like, are people reading in the inbox? Because if they are, they're gonna reply, right? And if they're on Substack and on the platform, they're gonna leave a comment on the post. And so a lot of times in the beginning, people were replying to my emails but not leaving a comment on the post because they weren't on Substack, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
you
think
have to you
that's
have to first understand the platform, right? You're right about
yeah.
that. Yeah.
And you have to understand where people are reading. And so if they're not on there and they don't know how to use the chat, then they're not going to be able to have the conversation with you,
Mm.
which means that
Yeah.
it's going to take, which goes back to, the feature that I actually really love probably the most right now is being able to email your subscribers without posting to the Substack. Like I know it's an
Mm.
old one, but I feel that that's a really useful one for a lot of different cases. And often before I'm doing a live or before I start a chat, I'll send an email to subscribers just to give them that extra, like, hey, this is happening in a couple hours. Like, here's the link or here's a chat to give it that extra boost. And it doesn't get it doesn't get posted to the publication, but you get a better open rate from that.
So with Tamara, I also then said, do it with the chat. She did it. And then maybe in the first, whatever, like with the first chat or so, just one person replied. But now over the course of time, more and more people going to join because they know it's becoming a habit to join the chat and see what
Yep.
Tamara is there announcing. Also, when it comes to the lives, I think this is very important because Tamara, for instance, she had an issue with the lives. We reached out to Substack, and it's not an issue, or we don't know whether it is an issue or not because lots of her subscribers said they wouldn't get an email and or letting them know when Tamara is going live. So similar to us now, I don't know who exactly got the email or not. It's not transparent on Substack who gets it and who doesn't get it. And the thing was then that my recommendation was, yeah, well, you have to somehow announce it, and this would be then the custom email. So you're gonna say, I'm gonna send a personalized email to just like these subscribers, whatever, like
I
free
do
paid
it
or
every time. I do it every time. I send it out to the
yeah.
whole list. I've got like almost like a templated thing that I just changed so it's easy for me to do and I don't forget. I put a nice picture in and I'm like, hey, just reminding you today at such and such time, this is what's happening. And if you can tune in, be there, or you'll get the replay and the written transcript like in your inbox next week.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
we are already backed by readers' behavior, but also like human behavior. And again, we're missing things. We need to be reminded. Often we're somehow thinking, yeah, all the subscribers should know about the live. However, you can maybe assume
Yeah.
10% know about the live, 5% need to be reminded, and only 1% are showing up. This is the idea, or whatever, like 1% are interested in whatever, like less than 1% are going to show up. And in general, I think when it comes to engagement, coming back to like this point with reply rules and replying and building community, I think it's very important to keep in mind that no matter where you are on which social media channel, that the engagement rate is below 1%. This is very important. So you have, of course, many people who are reading and lurking in the dark, but most of them really stay like hidden. Maybe they are introverts, of course, but maybe they simply don't. This is not the habit to reply.
Yeah.
Except maybe
Yeah.
you're going with a controversial topic or so, and then they're gonna say, Christina, I never thought you would say something like this. This is my opinion. Sometimes this is happening. So I think, yeah, it is nice to give them the opportunity to go with the chat, go with the direct messages, go with the replies underneath the post, also reply to emails. There are lots of things. And what we also have to keep in mind is that about like 60% or so, they are now using the app, and 40% are using desktop. So more and more are going to use the app. And this is why I also found out last week that you really have to think because, of all the branding stuff, people are
Yeah.
branding, branding,
Yeah.
branding everywhere. And it's so important branding. Sure, I'm also full, I'm super, it's important with the branding. However, if you're going on the app, and I know you and Christy on notes talking about this, then we are with our publications nothing more than just a feed. So we have like our logo, a word mark, and then it's
Oh,
us.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what
Yeah,
I mean? And
yeah.
it's just a feed, and so who cares? Who cares about somehow branding?
But
Maybe
I
the
think
only
that
thing about
might
branding is
change.
then the accent colors and stuff.
That might change though, because that went away that was like a phantom thing. Like there was this beautiful branding and then you could actually see your whole
Yeah, I
publication
loved
on the
it.
app and then one
Yeah,
day it was gone. So that
yeah,
could change too. Like they could be rolling out new tools and they have to take away certain things and then bring them back. Cause I mean, I do think the app is, I mean, more and more people are on the app. And actually, I will agree with Substack in that way. Like it is a better reading experience on the app. Because I get so I get so overwhelmed in my inbox,
yeah,
right? And then also I have a million browser tabs open that I find sometimes I have to just save a post. I can't if it's too long, I can't get through the whole thing because my head is like in my calendar and all these things.
yeah.
So then when I can just pull it up either on my phone when I'm sitting somewhere quiet or I used to do on my iPad, then I can actually sit down and read some stuff. So I will say that in terms of email marketing and copy and all that stuff, an app is a better experience.
Yeah, and
So,
I don't know whether you can see this if you're joining here, but yeah. So this is Francis Christina, and then all you're seeing is just this feed. This is now Jen
yeah,
and I talking, and then notes. There is notes. There's, as you said, also the community. This is something that Substack also includes in the chat, and then of course lots of notes and stuff, and then yeah, you can't really see this, but you get the feeling of it. It's a feed. It's nothing more than this. And what's then, of course, standing out are, for instance, the thumbnails. This is something that then people click on. They're gonna say, "Oh yeah, there's something
yeah,
with magenta or with orange, so we're gonna click on it." Or there's a face, I'm gonna click on it. So this is very important, I think, now to keep in mind. And also somehow like this. These community features are becoming part of the feed. So if you're
yeah,
missing out on the community features, of course
yeah,
people can reply, but they don't have like really like the yeah, you know how it is, Jen. You can, of course, reply, but sometimes you're missing something. But with the
yeah.
chat, I'm more likely to go into the chat and see, hey, did someone reply? Also, maybe another tip for everyone is with the chat, how I'm using this is I'm amplifying my long form posts. So, of course, you're putting a lot of time,
Mhm.
sweat, tears into this. Even if you're using AI, it takes a lot of time, except it's just AI written and you don't care about this. But who does this as a writer? So the thing it takes hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours to get
Definitely.
everything ready. You're sending this out, and then worst case, no one cares. You have at least the feeling no one cares if you're new.
Yeah.
And then with the chat, you can say, "Hey, have you seen?" Of course, you don't say this, but you're gonna say, "Oh, this is super interesting this week. What I love, U.S. book show. These are the insights. What do you think about this? How are you
Yeah.
thinking about like educating the next generation on becoming readers more and stuff?"
Very
And so this is the way then how I can
Mhm.
spark again like this idea of yeah, spark this conversation, and suddenly people
Yeah.
reply and stuff. Like this is really the best.
For everybody who's a writer, it's like a great base to figure out, oh, what is it that people like about me? Like what is it that actually makes me a little bit different? Because when I go through sprints and I am putting my weekly newsletter in the chat, asking questions about it, it's so interesting when I do the ones about writing and especially writing all the little Substack reader touch points. I get way more conversations than I do when I'm like doing a thought piece about book publishing or ideas for marketing your book or things like that. Those sometimes, I'll get a few, but like I'll get conversations about the writing. So that tells me something, right? About like why people are subscribing and what they think I'm about. And that's really interesting feedback because sometimes that's not necessarily where I want to go, right? Like I'm on this whole thing and oh, this is gonna be great. And there's gonna be a whole conversation about it. And actually the truth is that, when I've built up that direct response with readers, like they're like, no, no, actually I want your eyes on my about page or I want your eyes on my welcome email. Or I want to know like, actually, how do I write this? So that's something that, that's exactly what you want.
And I think especially if it comes about like vulnerable topics as well, or what I said with
Yeah.
NFL
Yeah.
Bachelor, what do you have there in America? All the reality TV shows and stuff.
Cooking,
And there
what
are
to
so
cook.
many people interested in celebrity gossip, Blake
Yeah.
Lively, and you know what I mean. All this, you can create this lovely space, and it can also become some kind of evergreen if it's a topic. For instance, Blake Lively, the Blake Lively discussion is
Oh,
something. The
right.
trial is going on for whatever, like more than a year here now. And you can,
Right.
go into this all the time, and you can share this on notes, and you can say, hey, what do you think about Blake Lively and stuff. And of course, now with gossip and celebrity, this is one thing. But if it's, for instance, about
Totally.
vulnerability and sharing your messy stories as an example, and people sharing theirs, and then you're inviting people, this is also something how you can use the chat. And again, what I think again is super, super important, because now, for instance, when I'm getting unsubscribes, people telling me, oh, Christina, yeah, I love this so much, but now I'm also getting all the information with chat or Claude. And I'm like, or
Mm.
they say, no, I have to heavily invest into AI because AI now writes my newsletter, like, okay, great. Or I'm now writing my book with AI or stuff. For instance, my husband, he's a software developer. He's like, oh my, I have to pay whatever, like $50 more or so. I think he has a plan. It's already like $600 or so. It's crazy, what you can build there. However, this is like the window of opportunity with AI. So I totally get this. And so often then when we're then talking back and forth, and somehow they then understand, oh man, yeah, you're right about that. With the chat and with the lives, I'm actually getting access to Christina. And if I'm just asking chat
Yeah.
about this, or no matter what it is, you are writing about gardening and stuff.
Yeah.
Also, of course, about gardening. For instance, at the weekend, Jen, we went to a park with my mom, and she was like, "Oh, I think this and that flower." I thought it wasn't. And so what I did was I took the phone and I took a
Oh,
photo,
yeah, yeah.
and I was just asking Chat, and Chat told me, "No, no, it's not this, it's something else." And she was like, "Oh my god, I didn't thought this
Yeah.
would be possible." And then we started talking with Chat about it, and she was like, "Oh my god, this is mind blowing." So it's crazy what you can do there. We can talk about this
Yeah.
with AI, and that you can talk with AI and let criticize your work and stuff. Are you already also using this? Do you have any tips and tricks for us how we could use this? Because AI now is everywhere, and somehow everyone is somehow, yeah, testing AI, and also how to write with AI and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you bring that up. So I work with nonfiction authors, right? And they usually have a body of work. They've got a book, they've got
Yeah.
articles, they've got podcasts, right? It's part of their whole business ecosystem. So a couple months ago, I created my first AI offer that actually has been, people are really liking it. Because this is all their original work, right? And a lot of times they're intimidated by this whole conversation. However, I realized as a copywriter, like, this is what's happening. So I have a Claude offer because Claude is the sort of, I feel like, the best writing tool right now, where I take their book manuscript, articles, and I train a custom Claude project on their voice. I give them a voice and tone guide. I train it to sort of help them push back and be a thought partner for the next article that they're going to write. If they want to use it for their newsletter, they can. If they want to write a draft of their newsletter and put it in and then get feedback to make it stronger, they can do that. I have a client who has a podcast. He's an education journalist, right? So he has strong feelings about letting AI write his articles. However, he's got this podcast every week. And so he takes those transcripts and then he
Hmm.
brainstorms angles for his articles and LinkedIn posts. And he has no problem with that. He's like, this is great. He just used it to plan his vacation to Croatia. That cracked me up. That was not part of the training. So I have started doing that, and I work with my authors, and I turn out like I show them how to set up a Claude account. They turn it over to me. I tell them what materials from them I need. I train Claude this project on their voice, on the things that we want it to do for them, and then I turn it back over to them, and it's like people have been loving it. So that's just how I've leaned into it, right? Because often they're going to use it now for things that they would hire me for. Like if they need to do promotional emails for their podcast, if they need to come up with a strategy for that, usually they would hire me for a couple hours. I'm like, don't worry about it. Let's see if Claude can help you. If you're going to use Claude and ChatGPT, let's at least use it well. Like that's what kind of saw this trend about a year ago where authors were just the first couple newsletters. I was like, this is like badly written by ChatGPT. It's not going to work. So then I'd have a sensitive but honest conversation about how they did that and where they're going. And everybody was using the free version badly. So I'm like, if we're going to do it, let's get the paid version, use it well, make it a thought partner, and train it on your body of work and your voice. So that's happening now. And, it's working. What I use for my own, so I use it a lot again, like when I do Substack Lives, I'll take the transcript. I have a Claude special project set up for it. I run it and it gives me a whole newsletter where it just takes the transcript and turns it into a format that I use. Because I've heard from people that when I send out the live after the fact, they're not going to watch the video, but they do want to read it. So I let Claude do all of that for me. And then I use Claude a lot to think through what's the next thing I'm going to do. And lately, in fact, I just did it yesterday. So, US Book Show, I took the Claude app on my phone, I used the voice command, and I talked through the LinkedIn posts about the book show that I was going to write. And I would talk to you like this. I was like, okay, here are my notes. They're just a mess of like lines. I can't even remember like what panel this was from or what's the best way for us to do this. And then she like, it like said, all right, just read out your notes and then tell me some of the panels that you remember. Tell me your top takeaways that are on your mind. And then we'll just sort of figure it out and put it into groups. And so we wrote 3 LinkedIn posts together.
Yeah, this is crazy. I think when it comes to organizing and stuff, especially what you were saying, like with whatever, like working with post-it notes or attending an event and then writing it down and stuff, this is really super helpful. I also think with me, for so when it comes to YouTube videos and stuff, timestamps, for instance, always used to be a
Yeah.
problem because then I was editing something and then I had to go back and do, oh my God, it took so long. And now it's super easy. I put it into ChatGPT and it's going to tell me, what, these are the timestamps. And we're like cutting this down maybe to 5 or so, except not like going with 10 or 15 or so. And this is super helpful. So as an organization buddy, and so this can really help. And the same is like with, for instance, asking AI. This is something that I'm going to share in the online writing club. Asking AI really, am I the person I think I am on the internet or not? Because, for instance, the online writing club.
Ah,
The online
yeah.
writing club is an example, a good example. Ask ChatGPT or Claude about the online writing club or about your newsletter, and then like honest critique on this. And then, for instance, the online writing club, one of the biggest pillars is Substack. And this is good and this is bad because people are coming to the online writing club because they want to become better writers, better copywriters. It's about publishing, it's about indie publishing. Somehow I'm doing this also with Fleur Hall with the Substack bookstore. But this is, and I don't want somehow to be the somehow I want to be the Substack person, but at the same time, I don't want to be the Substack person. You know what I mean? Like I want to wear
Yeah.
multiple hats. Otherwise, I wouldn't have called it the online writing club. And so this is super interesting. Or there was someone writing about gardening, but this person was also writing about another topic. And then we were asking Chat, and Chat said, you know what? I have the feeling like the first like topic or tag cloud is another one than gardening. And she was like, oh my God, my newsletter is about gardening, but she was writing about design stuff so much that it was
Yeah.
more about interior design. And I said, you know what, maybe if this is more your passion, because apparently you're writing more about interior design, why not go with it? And now, for instance, she's like training AI to know that she's more this interior girl. You know what I mean? Sorry. And this is super interesting, I think, with AI to really make it like this, because usually in the beginning, Chat was always like, everything is super, yes. Super. And now you can also go with a transcript. You can say, hey, I had this interview with Jen, for instance. I'm not doing this, but for the next interview, because nothing is scripted here, but for the next interview, how could I make this better? Always like this better and improving.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
this is cool. The same also with fiction writers. When you tell me, Christina, then you have to decide whether you want this or not. But they put their chapters in it and then they're going to ask for feedback. Again, you're always training AI, so you have to decide whether you want it or not,
Yeah.
especially if it's an original piece. Yeah, yeah. And what
Yeah.
I think is very important here, David was touching on this. He said, make sure that you tell AI if you've used it long enough that you want it to sound like you. I found the best way to use AI is to tell my story and let it put it together and share it with everyone. So this is the idea from Karen Selmanson. We had an interview together and she was saying, the you are the better. So the more you can be, the better. The idea is that you have this writer thumbprint and somehow you are not just some girl on the internet. You are
Yeah.
this person. People are coming to you because of this and that specific topic.
Yeah.
And I think this is very important. And this can be gluten-free cooking. This can be gardening. This can be fishing. This can be, parenting, no matter what it is. Many of you, Stephanie and all the others, they loved our session. We can, of course, now talk about AI for hours. But maybe to close this, Jen, because you are an actual like copywriter, maybe you have some tips for us if we want to embrace this, the UER, the better. The most important thing is, of course, to strengthen our writing muscle, not just go
Yeah.
to the gym to train our muscles, but also our writing muscles. are there some tips to immediately making our copy, which is our newsletter, somehow better? Or although also these, what you said, authors hate selling. They sounding salesy. It's great to ask Chat and Claude to write this. We all now can write these promotional emails. But do you have some tips maybe for promotional emails and also for more like the copy of our newsletters? Do you have some tips we can immediately use?
So your personal stories are always the biggest hook, right? When you can make that personal connection with someone by telling a story that really like reels them in and brings them in, that's the best. What you don't want to do is again like go to ChatGPT or Claude blindly and say, "Okay, I need to promote this thing. Like, write me some emails." You want to. You're the thing. You do the thinking. You are the person, and that's what people connect with. So you want to come up with some personal stories that connect directly, that you can make a segue to that thing that you're promoting, right? So that people are drawn in with, oh, this person is telling me a story. And then at the end, you connect it to whatever you're promoting or whatever you're selling or your book. Like
Yeah.
that's a Laura Belgray style. So shout out to
Yeah.
Laura, right? Like that's the most
And you
important
know
thing.
that I think she has an AI tool for exactly this, right? I
I
think she
think,
built an AI tool for
yeah,
finding all these little anecdotes in your life and
yeah,
connecting these to your newsletter. You know what she's doing, like with the tuna and stuff? Whenever
yeah,
she's going somewhere or on vacation or eating with her hubby, then she's like
exactly.
taking a picture and like sharing the story about the tuna sandwich. And we're like, what? Why is she talking about the
Stories
tuna
in an
sandwich?
elevator, conversations in an elevator. Love those.
Yeah.
It's great. And then the other thing that's I think most important right now too, it's for a long time it's been this way, but your subject lines really matter, right? Because your subject line is kind of our inboxes are crowded, and that's really what stands out. So pay attention, spend a little time. If you are using AI, then use one of those headline analyzers. Like that's the way to use it. Use your tools properly. So you take it. There are all these free headline analyzers on online. Use one of those and run your headlines through them and make them as strong as they possibly can, because that's really how people aren't going to read your writing unless they open your email. So don't forget about that. And then the other thing is like have a consistent sign off, I think. I think the like we're in the age of the newsletter right now, the art of the newsletter, and you want it to feel like it's coming from someone and people are not being sold to all the time. Nobody wants to be sold to all the time. We're all kind of over that. So having a nice consistent sign off and something that's personal really makes it feel like a letter to a friend. And when I started my Substack newsletter, I really spent some time thinking about, okay, what's the tone, right? And the tone is like this down to earth writer to writer friend, right? Whenever, doesn't matter if we're doing a live, doesn't matter if I'm talking to you about the next like workshop I'm going to do, or if I'm just writing my weekly newsletter, the tone is always writer to writer, down to earth, like talking to a friend. Like you feel like you're in my world. I'm working with authors. I work in book publishing, and like I'm chatting with you like you are too. So decide on that and like develop that. Like that's what a newsletter is so amazing for, is developing your writing voice, because it takes a while to get that. It takes a while to figure that out. And you have this incredible opportunity, especially when you don't have very many subscribers, to make all these mistakes and try all these things that don't work and not be embarrassed, like there aren't that many people yet. And then you also have this huge platform and this sea of people where you can try notes, you can try chats, you can try all these tools to see how to be discovered more while you're developing your writing voice, because that's what it comes back to.
Yeah.
That personal story and your voice.
Yeah. And I think this is so important. This comes back to like the UE are the better original pieces,
Yeah.
becoming this writer, having like this writing thumbprint, this DNA, which is very important. And one learning we had also was often people now think they ask AI what type of writer they are, or what their voice is. But the best thing you can do is tell AI who you are. But for this, of course, you need to write. Another, for instance, besides Laura Belgray, she is in my inbox every single day. Although I can't, of course, read all her emails. She's sending an
Yeah.
email every day. When she's selling something, 3 emails per day. I'm not reading these, but I love seeing Laura in my inbox. And then also the subject line is always cool. Of course, also, I don't know whether I have tough titties here, but I also read her book, Tough Titties, of course, which I love.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah.
You too, I guess, right, Jen?
Yes, and
Um,
I was gonna mention Inbox, the book launch hero, because
yeah,
she's
book
got a
launch hero.
great course about launching your book and about writing those promotional emails that most people
Yeah,
don't,
yeah.
and how to take your personal stories into
Yeah, and then there is another one, Anne Handley. Do you know Anne Handley?
Oh,
I
yeah,
attended
yeah,
an
I
event
do.
last week where I saw her on stage, and she's amazing. I wanted to write a newsletter about her because there were so many
She
amazing
is
things she
amazing.
shared. And Handley, for instance, is amazing. And another one you can meet next week is, for instance, Jay Schwelzen. He's more like marketing guru, but he has a top one podcast in marketing, and he's really just
Yeah,
Jay, and with Laura Belgray, this is so Laura, this is so Anne, this is the best. Karen Salmonson is a great example. Karen Salmonson, you know exactly this is Karen Salmonson, and I think this is really the best. So cool. And now with Jen, I know who you are. I love this wonderful conversation. I think so many fall in
this
love
was
with you.
great.
How can we connect with you, Jen? Is it the best way then on
So
Substack or somewhere else?
Substack. So Substack is the best. It's the skillful scribbler, but it's jenbaxter.substack. Because last tip to leave you all with when you start your Substack, grab your name as the URL. Most important thing, the more crowded it gets, you don't want someone else to take your name. You can change the title of your Substack as many times as you want, but you can't change that URL. So I would love to connect with you on Substack or on Notes. And then the other place that online that I really spend a lot of time now is LinkedIn. So happy to connect with people on LinkedIn if they're there. But really it's Substack and LinkedIn. And I would, if there are new authors or authors that are getting ready to launch their book, I have a founding member subscription where you'll get a complimentary one-on-one with me and we'll strategize your Substack or your book launch for an hour and I'll give you some guidance as a founding member. So that's how I work
Super.
that.
And
Yeah.
if I'm hearing this, I have something coming. It's always with me last minute, but I think it's gonna be about 2 to 3 weeks. I don't know about summer break in America, whether this is a good thing to do or not. This is gonna be some kind of indie publishing summit. You know what I mean, on Substack with some indie publishers. This would be amazing, Jen, if you could join us as well. This would be cool. Like with the Chrissy, for instance, she knows this. Like it's always like just 15 minutes. Still 50 minutes, but 10 to 15 minutes for everyone on stage or the digital stage. And then you can do whatever, like we're gonna go with a specific topic, and then you can talk another la la, and we can learn from one another. It's gonna be usually like 6 to max, I'd say 8 people or so. And it's
Right.
about, in this case, really indie publishers, because before we were always like going with everyone, la la la. But Flora Hall and I, she's from Australia, we said we need to do something for like the small guys, the indie publishers, And also when I attended the indie publishing conference or indie publishing book fair in Leipzig a few months back with my kids, I also thought, yeah, we need to support like the indies more. In Germany, it's always a bit different, and also with
Yeah.
Substack, no one knows about Substack really. But what I love is that in America, when you're talking about Substack now, almost everyone. For a few weeks back, we met someone in Frankfurt. There's a huge market hall, and I also told him, hey, I have an online writing club on Substack. He was like, oh my God, Substack, it's such a buzzy platform, and now everyone is there, and he's also subscribed to someone. So this is what I love so much. So Jen, if you have, I'm gonna share more details then,
Yeah,
if
that'd be
I
great.
also
Is it
know more details.
is it nonfiction or fiction writers?
Most of them are
Oh,
fiction
fiction
writers.
writers.
There are also lots of personal memoirists writing,
Mhm.
and we had
Perfect.
also, Fleur and I, we also helped someone with an actual nonfiction book and stuff. So yeah, it
Perfect.
depends,
Okay.
fiction and
Yeah,
nonfiction. This would be cool.
let's do it. I'd love to. Okay.
Cool.
This has been
So
so nice, Christina. Thank you.
yeah, this was really delightful. And if you want to meet Jen Baxter, then you can meet Jen Baxter in our author summit, in the author summit. This is coming in a few weeks. So thank
Great.
you so much. It was delightful, Jen. Wish you a wonderful day, my friend.
Yes, great conversation. Thank you.